Hey everyone, it's Jack. And today, Xfce 4.18 is out. Actually, it was out on December 14th or 15th. However, I waited until now to talk about it because, well, just because. So Xfce, this is really exciting. This is the first update in 2 years, which is pretty normal cycle for Xfce. Usually, typically 2-year cycles, the last release being 4.16. And now we're at 4.18. And there's some exciting new changes this time around for Xfce, and mostly in the Thunar file manager, but other areas too. And so I loaded in a copy of Linux Mint with the Xfce 4.18 desktop environment on it. And you're probably thinking, what? Linux Mint? Why, you stoop? Why didn't you just put in Arch Linux? Well, that's easy because there's a lot of Ubuntu and Linux Mint users out there. And by default, right now, Ubuntu or Xubuntu and Linux Mint are using 4.16. There's probably a lot of people that might want to try 4.18 right now instead of waiting until April 2023 to get it on Xubuntu or Linux Mint. So I'm going to show you real quick how to do that. And then we'll take a look at all the cool new stuff. Okay, and here I am. I'm booted into Linux Mint. And so I'm just going to update this. And so all I did was run, first of all, a sudo apt update and upgrade. So we're going to do that, of course, first, just to make sure we're all up to date before we do our transition from 4.16 to 4.18. And then next, all I did was add in the apt repository here. And so as you can see, we just did a sudo add apt repository and then the ppa:/dev/staging. And then that'll get us our repository added in for our development repo. And after that, then we run a sudo apt update and just let it update. So we get our repo added into the apt list. Cool. And then if you want to see, we can do sudo apt list --upgradable. And then this will show us all the stuff that are available and we can verify that we have 4.18. And as you can see, these are jammy 4.18 Xfce noted here in the list. So now all we have to do is a sudo apt upgrade and it will now upgrade us to 4.18 and we're good to go. Nice. So I'm just going to say yes here on continue, let it do its thing. And it zipped along pretty fast. It didn't take long at all. So now we're upgraded. Next thing we got to do is restart the computer. Otherwise, it's not going to take effect. So I'm going to restart it right now and then we should be good to go. All right. So now I'm going to log in here and then we'll be in our desktop, aka 4.18. All right. So now if I open this up and I type in Xfce 4-about, we should be able to see our version here. And I'm just going to enlarge that a bit, move it over. And, okay. So we need to install our lib Xfce 4UI utils. So I'm just going to do a sudo apt install. That's one thing I like about the app is it'll kind of tell you what you need, which is cool. So we'll get that installed. All right, now let's try typing it again. So Xfce 4 and here we got 4.18. So now we can verify that we are at the new Xfce. So now we can get in and look at the cool stuff. Yes. So where to go first? I'll just minimize that real quick. And then we'll go in here. And I don't think I can see them in here in Mint, but I just wanted to open this up just for the mention anyways, that Xfce 4.18 has new default wallpaper now available. And so the new wallpapers are kind of a result of a contest that was put on by the Xfce team, and they picked out some of their favorites. And there's like 3 or 4 different new wallpapers that are available now by default, which I think is really cool. And I'm not really sure how I would get to those default wallpapers here. I'm not even sure if they're in the Mint distro after kind of doing this desktop upgrade. I'm just kind of looking real quick, but I don't see them. Yeah, that's kind of the first thing that's new. And then if we go over here, I'm going to go in my settings here. And if we go into appearance and click on the settings tab, you can see a couple new things here, like enable header bars and dialogues. And I'm not sure exactly where that corresponds to, but you can turn that off, on and off there. And that might be maybe pop-up dialogues. that I'm not real clear on, but I do know that's kind of one of the newer features. Another cool thing, if we go to desktop here and then click on menus, there's a feature here where we have enabled delete option in the file context menu. You can now turn that off. So like if I right click, actually I got to have an icon first. So let me just go up and create an icon first. So I'm just going to like make a blank file or something. So I'm going to go over here, right click and select create document, empty file. And we'll just call it test. That works. And then go up here. And so now, like, if I go on this file, if I right click on it, you can see a delete option here in the context menu. And so if I uncheck it here, come back, and then you can see that the delete option is gone when I right click on the file. So that's where that corresponds to. So you can now turn that on and off if you don't want to have that delete option there. So that's kind of cool. And then again, turn it back on, and then there it is. Voila. With instant feedback on the results there. So now if we go back to all settings and I go over here to display, another thing we got in our display is under advanced. If we go here under connecting displays here, you can see when we select the drop down here, we can see our other choices like mirror and extend or do nothing. If I remember correctly, before you could only see those choices if you had extra monitors hooked up. But now you can see them even when there's no other monitors. As you can see, there's no other monitors hooked up. So now you can see those options even without those monitors actually being plugged in. So that's kind of nice there. And then down here in our panel bar, the clock. This is kind of cool too. If you go into your clock settings here, we now can control our fonts right within the settings. So this is great. I mean, by default, we have sans regular, but maybe I want to make it bold. I can just select that, or a different font altogether. But now I have a bold here for the clock, and then I can even drill down further. Like, for example, if I want to change my format to something like maybe add the date in with the time, so maybe date and time, then here I got the date and it's in regular font. We can also adjust our fonts by the date. So if we come down here to our layout here and go from time only to like time and then date, or we can go date and then time, which I kind of like, so I'll select that. And then you can see our date down there above the time. And so now I can come up here and select the font for the date, because that's appeared now that we have that option enabled. So right now it's 8 point, and we could change it to like sans bold italic. And now we got an italic bold above there for the date. So really nice control here. And then of course our date, our time settings, we can also change if you want to have like seconds showing or 24-hour or whatever. And then here we can change our font size, so we can crank it up. I cranked it up to 12, and now we got a bigger font size for the clock and a smaller for the date. Great control. I'm really liking this. And then I'm just going to go back to the hourly minute format, and then I'll close that. Now let's explore Thunar. So this is where the bulk of the visible updates are in 4.18. One of the things I really like, here we have our folders, but now picture previews are back. And I added some pictures in here in my picture folder so I could demo this. So if you click on this, now we have previews that are available down here in the right-hand pane, or the left-hand pane, I mean. Actually, both panes. Ain't that a pain? Not. So if I go up here to edit and then preferences, or actually view, let's go there first. So we can go into view, and under side pane, we got our image preview option. So I can check that. And now when I click on the image, it shows up in the lower left corner there. Really cool. So now we got this nice image preview. And that was one thing I always kind of liked in Dolphin, but now we got it here. So now let's go into our edit and then preferences. And then here under display, one thing that's I noticed that's new too is only show thumbnails smaller than. It's unlimited by default, which I really like. So that way it'll show for any picture your thumbnails instead of having to filter it down by default. And I just changed my format there just because it's a OCD thing. Now if we move over to our side pane tab here, we have image preview settings again. Embedded is where we're at right now. But if I change this to standalone, then it's going to move over to the other side. So I close that. I don't know why, but let's go back into pictures. Now you can see it over here on the right-hand side. So this is the standalone option here. And so now you get a big preview. So if you like that better, you now have that option. If I go up and just kind of expand this a bit, and then I can slide this over and kind of shrink it back. So this would be like our minimum size for the bigger preview. So if you like a big preview, this is the option you can use as well, is have a standalone instead of the embedded. Also the split view here under view. That's another thing that I really like, is a split view. So you can just kind of move files between folders in a nice split view. So I just moved it onto my desktop folder here. And then, of course, I can go the other way around. I can put the picture back. And so with that split view, that's a really handy little option. That's just something I really like. Oh, and here's another cool thing. Like if I select a folder here, let's try apps. And then if I right click on it, I can go into properties here. And then there's a new tab called highlight. And we can actually highlight our folders. So if you have a folder that you want to kind of have highlighted, and this would come in handy if you have like a complicated folder structure or just a gazillion folders in a directory, you can sit there and select a highlight color, even the custom color like I was just in. But you could like say make a purple background. And so if I select purple and then set background here by clicking the button, then it'll give me a purple background on the folder. And so if I hit apply, then that makes my background purple. Nice. So how cool is that? Now that folder stands out, and it doesn't look quite so special with this small number of folders. But if I was in a folder with maybe a couple hundred subfolders, then this could be really handy to make certain folders stand out. And also you can color code them by, maybe categories. Maybe folders from this year could be purple, and from last year they could all be orange and so forth. So you can just kind of use your imagination there. And also you can set your foreground color as well. So I could set my foreground and have my text purple instead. But of course, then it would just kind of blend in with the background. So I would make it yellow probably with purple. That could work. Or maybe I want my background yellow. So I can hit set background, and now the background is yellow. Of course, my text is yellow too. That'll disappear if I just kind of click over here. Then you don't see any text because it's the same color. So I would just want to select a different color for my text, like maybe black. And then select set foreground, and now it's visible again. Cool. So there we have a nice highlighted yellow for our apps folder. And of course that yellow can mean whatever you want. So that is our highlighting. Loving it. And of course you could just highlight the text too, change the text color if you wanted. Just do that, be more subtle. And back in our preferences here, there's our standalone. That's what we just adjusted. But if I come over here, then we have our behavior, and that's where you can set single click. And that's not a new feature, but just thought I'd throw that in there. But now we have our execute all shell scripts. That's another new feature, is to have this option where you can execute shell scripts right from within Thunar. So if I check that, then you'll be able to just double click on a shell script and it will execute. And then here's our shortcuts. So if we go in here, we can set our keyboard shortcuts, which is nice. So maybe Control T is too obvious for making a new tab. Maybe you want something that's more obvious for you. Like, let's say something like we click on it and then I can press Control semicolon. Yeah, there we go. That's obvious. Control semicolon for a new tab. So now if I press the Control semicolon, there you go. A new tab. Wow. Yeah. Seriously, like I'd use Control semicolon. But you never know. Maybe you want a secret way to make tabs with a key. The other new thing here is the addition of the recent. So here we have recents, and so that's accessible there. And in addition to the recents, if we go to the Edit tab, there's also the undo and the redo. Nice. So now you can undo and redo stuff that you've done in Thunar here, like maybe accidentally delete a folder or something, tossed it in the trash. And then here we got our search bar. And so that's something new. And the search is recursive. Like if I did a search in here for test and then just did that, it'll start looking through every folder in the world for files that contain the name test, including the one that's on the desktop. And I probably shouldn't have done that because now it's going to take forever to find it. Because there's probably a million things in here, yes, with the word test in it. But anyway, you kind of get the picture. So our search feature, which is nice. And then, of course, if we go into preferences here and we go to advanced, we got use intermediate file on copy and verify the checksum on copy. So that's nice to have. You can verify ISOs right there on the spot and so forth. Include subfolders in your search. So here you can have it do it always, only for local files and so forth. And then, of course, our execute shell script, which I think I mentioned earlier. So you can turn that on if you want to be able to just double click on a shell script and run it right from within Thunar. So nice option there. And now I'm just going to minimize that a little bit and slide it up here a bit and just kind of expand it out. And here on our bottom panel here, we can add in features through the checkbox when I right clicked. And we also got those little pipe symbols there separating everything. And I don't think those were there before either. I think it was something else, maybe a space or a comma or something. Can't remember. But here you can turn on and off your options, what to display there in the status bar. And again, if we go over here, we can see our details for our image. When I click on it down in the status bar, again, they're separated by the pipe symbols, which is nice. I think that's a great touch. And then here we got our panel. And if we go into our panel preferences, we can see a couple changes here too. Like, for example, if we go down here to our length for our panel, instead of being in percentage, now it's in pixels. So it's 1920 there it's showing, and as I shrink it, it shows the pixels, whereas before it used to say 100% or 0%. So that's pretty nice. You got it in pixels. You can really kind of tweak it into exactly where you want it. And then keep panel above windows. That's another option. So now you can put your fully maximized window behind the panel. If you click on that, I'm not really sure why anyone would want to do that, but it's there. Now you can do that. So by clicking that, now it's behind the panel. So there's probably some reasons that I can't think of at the moment why you'd like to do that. For me, I wouldn't like it because it just kind of cuts off part of my window and I can't see it. But I guess I'm probably missing something obvious, so feel free to comment if I'm really not getting it. But anyways, that's what that'll do. So you can put your full window behind the panel there. Cool. And so then now if I turn that off, the status bar will pop up right up above the panel now. So now I can see the status bar. But if I want it hiding behind the panel, then I can just kind of change the preference and put it behind there. Yeah. But anyways, choices are always good. And I know there's a good reason to be able to put that behind the panel. And probably one of those reasons would be you just don't want to look at the status bar. So you can see more of the real window that you want to see. Excellent. So, wow, I think I covered all of that. I can't think of any more changes off the top of my head here in Xfce 4.18, but I'm telling you, they do have other things in the background too. They did a gazillion bug fixes, updated dependencies. So those are all kind of updated too, like the glib and so forth, if I remember right. But lots of dependency updates, bug fixes, all kinds of background stuff. 4.18 is looking really good. And this is kind of one of the reasons I really like Xfce so much is when they do updates, they're not real often, but when they do a major update, they're always cool. And for me, they did not disappoint this time, especially with all those changes to Thunar. I think that's pretty exciting there. Again, Thunar is one of my favorite file managers anyways. I think it's really fast, zippy, and just an all-around a great file manager. For me, it's like really comfortable. It's kind of like an old boot. It's just comfortable and you just want to wear it all the time. So I absolutely have to give a double thumbs up for Xfce 4.18 for sure. And if you're running Arch, no doubt you already have it right now, but now you're kind of familiar with it, assuming you're an Xfce user, of course. I'm sure you're probably familiar with some of the new stuff, or you might have noticed some things. But if you haven't, now you have stuff to notice. If you're running Linux Mint and Ubuntu, I didn't run into any issues, any conflicts with any of the packages on here. So for me, it kind of worked fine, but you want to keep in mind also that there could possibly be some kind of package conflict by adding in the development repository and upgrading ahead of time. It's hard to say. Personally, I doubt that you're going to have any real issues. If you do, you can always wait till April and they'll magically disappear. But anyways, just thought I'd throw that in there just in case anybody brings up a package issues. But I would be willing to assume, and you know what happens when you assume, that there's probably no issues that are going to be real major with package conflicts by updating to 4.18. At least I didn't experience it within the whole hour that I've been playing with it, which doesn't say much. But anyway, just had to bring that up. And with that, I hope this was helpful, and if it was, don't forget to leave that thumbs up and hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.